The Gathering Storm, 2,000 words. For decades, the human colony on the distant planet of Senderi had flourished, its towering cities and bustling factories a testament to humanity's resilience and ingenuity. Terraforming techniques honed over centuries had transformed the once inhospitable world into a thriving oasis, a hub of trade and commerce that served as a vital link in the vast network of human settlements scattered across the stars. At the heart of this colonial success story stood General Samantha Cortez, a seasoned military commander with an unparalleled strategic mind. She had overseen the colony's defenses since its earliest days, guiding the development of its formidable arsenal of plasma cannons, missile silos, and atmospheric fighters. Under her watchful eye, Senderi had become a fortress, its citizens secure in the knowledge that their home was impregnable. But now, a dark shadow loomed on the horizon, and Cortez's confidence was beginning to waver. Unsettling reports had been filtering in from the colony's outer settlements, whispers of an alien force unlike anything humanity had ever encountered before. These invaders, with their advanced technology and seemingly limitless firepower, had carved a path of destruction through the furthest reaches of human-occupied space, leaving a trail of shattered colonies and devastated worlds in their wake. As the intelligence gathered, Cortez's brow furrowed in growing concern. The details were vague. The accounts of those who had managed to escape the alien onslaught fragmented and inconsistent. But one thing was clear: this was no mere raiding party, no opportunistic band of marauders looking to plunder and pillage. These were the harbingers of a full-scale invasion, a relentless juggernaut that showed no signs of slowing. Summoning her top officers to the command center, Cortez laid out the grim facts. "Gentlemen, we're facing a threat the likes of which we've never seen before. These alien invaders are moving with a speed and coordination that defies comprehension. Every colony they've targeted has fallen within a matter of days, their defenses swept aside, as if they were little more than paper barriers." The room fell silent, the weight of her words sinking in. Cortez could see the fear and uncertainty in the faces of her officers, their expressions mirroring the unease that gnawed at her own heart. "What are our current defenses like?" one of the officers asked, his voice tense. Cortez pursed her lips, her gaze sweeping across the tactical displays. "Our planetary defenses are formidable, but I'm not sure they'll be enough to withstand the full force of this alien onslaught. We've been stockpiling weapons and fortifying our positions for years, but these invaders have technologies that we can scarcely comprehend." Another officer, a seasoned veteran named Colonel Nakamura, spoke up, his brow furrowed in deep thought. "General, if these aliens are as advanced as you say, then our conventional weapons may not be enough. We need to start exploring alternative strategies, ways to even the playing field." Cortez nodded, her mind racing. "Agreed, Colonel. We'll need to dig deeper into our research and development programs, look for any technological edge we can exploit, and in the meantime, we need to prepare our troops for the fight of their lives." As the meeting adjourned, Cortez retreated to her private quarters, a sense of foreboding weighing heavily upon her. She had dedicated her life to the defense of Senderi, her every waking moment spent ensuring the security and prosperity of the colony she had come to love. The thought of it all being swept away in a matter of days was a nightmare she couldn't bear to contemplate. Sinking into her chair, Cortez reached into her desk drawer, withdrawing a worn photograph. It was an image of her family, her husband, and 2 young children, all smiling with carefree abandon. It had been months since she had seen them in person, their last communication cut short by the escalating crisis. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm so sorry. I promised I'd come home, but now." She closed her eyes, a single tear rolling down her cheek. The sound of the door chime pulled her from her reverie, and Cortez quickly composed herself, tucking the photograph back into the drawer. "Enter," she called out, her voice steady once more. Colonel Nakamura stepped inside, his expression grim. "General, we've just received new intelligence. The alien fleet has been spotted on the edge of our system, and they're moving fast. We need to prepare for an imminent attack. Cortez felt a chill run down her spine, but she nodded, her resolve hardening. Gather the troops and put the colony on high alert. We need to be ready for anything. As Nakamura hurried to carry out her orders, Cortez took a deep breath, her gaze fixed on the horizon. The fate of Zendari now hung in the balance, and she knew that she and her forces would have to fight with every ounce of their strength and skill to defend their home. "This is our fight," she murmured, her fingers curling into fists. "And we're not going down without a hell of a battle." The alien onslaught, 2,000 words. Without warning, the alien armada materialized in the skies above Zendari, their massive ships blotting out the sun. Streams of devastating energy beams rained down, obliterating the colony's defensive emplacements. Panicked civilians flooded the streets, fleeing towards the nearest shelters as the ground shook with the force of the bombardment. General Cortez rushed to the command center, her steely gaze fixed on the tactical displays. "All units, mobilize immediately. We need to buy our people time to evacuate." Her voice was calm and unwavering, but inside, she felt a growing sense of dread. These aliens were like nothing they had ever encountered before. The human troops scrambled to their positions, anti-air batteries unleashing a barrage of missiles and plasma bolts. But the alien ships simply shrugged off the bombardment, their advanced shielding technology rendering the colony's defenses virtually useless. One by one, the human strongholds were reduced to smoldering ruins, the alien invaders advancing relentlessly. "Colonel Nakamura, report." Cortez barked into her comm unit, her gaze fixed on the display as it updated with the grim status of their forces. "We're holding the line at Sector 7, but they're cutting through our ranks like a hot knife through butter, Mom," came the reply, the sound of explosions and weapons fire echoing in the background. "We're taking heavy casualties. I don't know how much longer we can keep this up." Cortez gritted her teeth, her mind racing. They had to find a weakness, some way to turn the tide of this unforgiving battle. "Hang in there, Colonel. I'm dispatching reinforcements immediately. We can't let them break through." As the additional troops rushed to bolster Nakamura's defenses, Cortez turned her attention to the alien mothership, a massive angular construct that dominated the skies. Her eyes narrowed as she studied its movements, searching for any hint of vulnerability. "General, sensors are detecting a massive power surge from the alien vessel," one of her officers reported, his voice tinged with alarm. "I think they're preparing to unleash some kind of devastating attack." Cortez felt her heart racing as she watched the alien ship systems align, a glowing conduit of energy building at its core. "All units, brace for impact." She barked into the comm, her hands gripping the edge of the console as the massive beam lanced down, cutting through the human defenses with terrifying ease. The ground shook with the force of the blast, and Cortez felt the air knocked from her lungs as the shockwave slammed into the command center. She fought to regain her footing, her ears ringing from the deafening explosion. "Status report," she demanded, her voice hoarse. The officer at the comm station looked up, his face pale. "Sector 7 is gone, ma'am." The colonel and his entire unit wiped out. Cortez felt a chill run down her spine. Nakamura had been a trusted friend and comrade, a seasoned veteran who had weathered countless battles. To lose him and his troops so suddenly, it was a devastating blow. "What about the other sectors?" she asked, struggling to keep her composure. "Not good, General," the officer replied, his fingers flying across the console. "Our forces are being pushed back on all fronts. We're taking heavy casualties, and our defenses are crumbling." Cortez clenched her fists, her knuckles turning white. This couldn't be happening. After years of careful planning and preparation, they were being overrun with ease. She had to find a way to turn the tide, to give her troops a fighting chance. "Divert all available resources to the secondary defensive line," she ordered, her mind racing. "We need to buy some time for the civilians to evacuate. And get me a direct line to the colony's planetary defense grid. We need to bring every weapon we have to bear on those alien vessels." As her orders were carried out, Cortez watched the tactical displays with growing dread. The alien forces were relentless, their movements coordinated with a precision that defied comprehension. Every time the human troops managed to gain a foothold, the aliens would adapt, their tactics shifting to overwhelm the defenders. "General, the planetary defense grid is coming online, but the alien ships are adapting faster than we can target them," one of her officers reported, his brow furrowed in concentration. "We're only managing to score glancing hits. It's not enough to turn the tide." Cortez gritted her teeth, her mind racing. They were running out of options, and the casualties were mounting. She couldn't bear the thought of ordering a full-scale retreat, of abandoning the colony she had sworn to protect. "Keep the defense grid firing, full barrage," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her mind. "We need to slow them down, even if we can't stop them outright." As the colony's massive plasma cannons roared to life, Cortez watched the battle unfold with a growing sense of dread. The human troops were fighting with valor, but their weapons and tactics were simply no match for the alien invaders. One by one, their strongholds fell, the defenders overwhelmed by the sheer force of the assault. "General, our lines are collapsing," another officer reported, his face etched with worry. "The civilians are in a full-scale panic, and our ability to coordinate an evacuation is breaking down. We need to fall back, or we risk being overrun." Cortez clenched her jaw, her mind racing. She knew what she had to do, but the thought of abandoning the colony she had sworn to protect tore at her heart. "All units, begin a tactical withdrawal to the emergency evac sites," she said, her voice tinged with regret. "We need to regroup and devise a new strategy. This fight is not over." As the human troops began their retreat, Cortez watched the alien forces advance, their ships raining down destruction upon the once vibrant colony. She felt a deep sense of failure, the weight of her decision bearing heavily upon her. But she knew that to have any hope of saving Zendari, they had to live to fight another day. Resistance and regrouping. 2,000 words. The battered remnants of the human forces made their way to the heavily fortified military outpost, their retreat a desperate scramble to stay ahead of the relentless alien onslaught. Smoke and debris filled the air, the sounds of destruction echoing all around as General Cortez and her command staff surveyed the grim scene. "Deploy all available medics and set up trade stations immediately," Cortez ordered, her gaze sweeping across the weary, battered troops. "We need to tend to the wounded and get everyone accounted for." As her orders were carried out, Cortez turned her attention to the tactical displays, her mind racing. The data from the battle painted a bleak picture. Their forces had been decimated, their advanced weaponry and tactics proving woefully inadequate against the alien invaders. "Lieutenant Commander Khalid, assemble your best operatives," Cortez said, her eyes narrowing as she studied the telemetry from the alien mothership. "I have a critical mission for you." Aisha Khalid, a seasoned veteran with a reputation for daring and unconventional tactics, stepped forward, her expression grim. "What do you need, General?" "We need to find a way to disrupt the aliens' communication network," Cortez replied, her finger tracing the schematics of the massive vessel. "Their forces are coordinating with a level of precision I've never seen before. If we can cripple their central command, it may give us the opening we need to turn the tide." Khalid nodded, her mind already whirring with possibilities. "I understand, General. We'll need to infiltrate that ship and get to their comm center. It won't be easy, but I've got just the team for the job." As Khalid gathered her elite squad, Cortez turned her attention to the rest of her command staff, her brow furrowed in deep thought. "Colonel Yamato, I need you to oversee the defense of this outpost. Fortify our positions, and be prepared to provide cover fire and extraction for Khalid's team." The seasoned officer saluted, his expression grim. "Understood, General. We'll hold this position at all costs." Cortez placed a hand on his shoulder, her eyes conveying a silent gratitude. "I know you will, Colonel. You and your men have already done more than enough. This time, let us handle the offensive." With a final nod, Cortez turned to Khalid, her expression hardening. Lieutenant Commander, your team has a narrow window of opportunity. Once you're aboard that ship, you'll be on your own. The fate of Sendari rests on your shoulders. Aisha Khalid met Cortez's gaze, her own eyes burning with determination. We won't let you down, General. This is our chance to turn the tide of this battle. As Khalid and her elite squad prepared for their daring mission, Cortez gathered the rest of her command staff, her mind racing with contingency plans. They had to be ready for every eventuality, from a successful infiltration to a worst-case scenario. Colonel Yamato, I want you to oversee the evacuation efforts, Cortez said, her voice low and serious. The priority is to get as many civilians to safety as possible. Coordinate with the local government and divert all available resources to the emergency shelters. Yamato nodded, his expression grim. It will be done, General. But what about the troops still engaged with the alien forces? Cortez hesitated, the weight of her decision evident in her eyes. We'll hold our position here and provide as much support as we can. But if Khalid's mission fails and the alien assault continues unabated, we may have to order a full retreat. The room fell silent, the gravity of the situation hanging in the air. Cortez knew that a full-scale retreat would be a devastating blow to morale, and the loss of the colony would be a crushing defeat. But she also knew that they had to prioritize the survival of their people, even if it meant abandoning their hard-won territory. I don't need to tell you all how important this mission is, Cortez said, her gaze sweeping across the faces of her officers. If we fail here, the consequences will be catastrophic. But I have faith in Khalid and her team. They're our best chance at turning the tide of this battle. As the preparations for the infiltration mission continued, Cortez retreated to her personal quarters, her mind consumed by the weight of her decisions. She knew that the fate of Sendari hung in the balance, and the burden of leadership weighed heavily upon her. Sitting at her desk, Cortez withdrew a well-worn photograph, her fingers tracing the faces of her family, her husband, and 2 young children, all smiling happily. It had been months since she had seen them, their last communication cut short by the escalating crisis. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I'm so sorry. I promised I'd come home, but now. She closed her eyes, a single tear rolling down her cheek. The sound of the door opening pulled her from her reverie, and she quickly composed herself as Lieutenant Commander Khalid stepped into the room, her expression resolute. General, we're ready to move out, Aisha said, her voice low and steady. My team is the best of the best, and we won't let you down. Cortez nodded, rising from her chair and placing the photograph back in its drawer. I know you won't, Aisha. Just come back to us, all right? We need you here, more than you know. Aisha offered a small, reassuring smile. We'll do what it takes, General. For Sendari, and for all of us. As Aisha turned to leave, Cortez reached out and grasped her arm, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and hope. May the stars watch over you, Lieutenant Commander. Godspeed. With a final nod, Aisha disappeared, leaving Cortez alone with her thoughts once more. The general took a deep, steadying breath, her resolve hardening. She would not allow the sacrifices of her troops to be in vain. Whatever it took, she would find a way to push back the alien invasion and reclaim Sendari. The perilous infiltration, 2,000 words. Under the cover of darkness, Lieutenant Commander Aisha Khalid and her elite squad made their way towards the towering alien mothership, their movements stealthy and precise. The massive vessel loomed above them, its angular lines and glowing conduits a stark contrast to the battered human outpost they had left behind. Khalid paused, her keen eyes scanning the outer defenses. All right, listen up, she whispered, her voice low and intense. We've got one shot at this. The aliens' sensor network is extensive, and their patrols are relentless. We need to time this perfectly. Her team nodded, their expressions grim but determined. They knew the stakes. The fate of the entire colony rested on their shoulders. Specialist Nguyen, Take point with your stealth unit." Khalid continued, her gaze sweeping across the group. "Neutralize any patrols you encounter, but keep it quiet. We can't afford to draw any unwanted attention." Nguyen, a seasoned operative with a gift for infiltration, nodded sharply. "Understood, ma'am. My team will clear the way." As Nguyen and his squad disappeared into the shadows, Khalid turned to the rest of her team. "The rest of you, keep your comm channels open and be ready to move on my mark. We need to get to the aliens' central command center and disable their communication network." "What about the civilian evac, Commander?" one of the soldiers asked, his voice tinged with concern. "Won't that be our primary extraction point?" Khalid's expression hardened. "That's the plan, but we can't count on it. The alien forces are relentless, and they may overwhelm our defenses before we can complete our mission. We need to be prepared for any eventuality." The soldier nodded, his jaw set with determination. "Understood. We'll be ready." Moments later, Nguyen's voice crackled over the comm. "Checkpoint 1 secured, ma'am. No casualties. Proceeding to the next sector." Khalid took a deep breath, her fingers tightening around the grip of her weapon. "Copy that. Stay sharp, everyone. This is where it gets dangerous." As the squad navigated the alien ship's labyrinthine corridors, they encountered pockets of resistance. The alien guards, their formidable cybernetic enhancements and advanced weaponry, making them a force to be reckoned with. But Khalid's team was well-trained and highly disciplined, their movements fluid and coordinated as they neutralized their foes with ruthless efficiency. "We're approaching the central command center," Nguyen reported, his voice trained. "But the security is tighter than we expected. There are at least a dozen guards stationed at the entrance." Khalid's brow furrowed, her mind racing. "Understood. Hold your position and await my signal. I'm going to take a closer look." Cautiously, Khalid edged forward, her weapon raised, her eyes scanning the area for any sign of movement. The alien guards were standing at attention, their robotic movements eerily precise. She could feel the hairs on the back of her neck standing on end, the sense of danger palpable. Suddenly, one of the guards turned, its glowing red eyes locking onto Khalid's position. A split second later, the air was filled with the deafening roar of plasma weaponry, and Khalid was diving for cover, her heart pounding in her chest. "They've spotted us," she yelled into the comm, her weapon blazing as she returned fire. "All units, move in and provide support." The rest of the squad surged forward, their weapons blazing as they sought to overwhelm the alien defenders. But the guards were relentless, their coordination and firepower proving to be a formidable obstacle. Khalid gritted her teeth, her mind racing as she searched for a weakness in their defenses. "Nguyen, can you find a way to flank them?" "Negative, Mom," came the reply, the sound of weapons fire crackling in the background. "They've got us pinned down. We need to break through their line if we're going to reach the command center." Khalid's eyes narrowed, a plan forming in her mind. "All right, listen up. I'm going to draw their fire, and I need you all to hit them with everything you've got. Once we've punched through, we'll make a break for the command center. Understand?" Her team acknowledged the order, their expressions grim but determined. Khalid took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. "On my mark," she said, her voice low and steady. 3, 2, 1, mark." Khalid burst from her cover, her weapon blazing as she advanced towards the alien guards. The guards turned their attention to her, their plasma beams lancing out in a deadly barrage. Khalid felt the heat of the energy bolts as they sizzled past her, her heart pounding in her ears. But her team was ready, their weapons unleashing a withering hail of fire that slammed into the alien defenders. The guards faltered, their coordination disrupted, and Khalid seized the opportunity. "Now," she roared, her squad surging forward, their boots pounding against the alien ship's metallic floors. The team moved with lightning speed, their weapons cutting down any guards that stood in their way. Khalid could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins as they closed in on the command center, the massive door looming before them. Breaching in 3, 2, 1. Nguyen called out, and the team unleashed a volley of explosive charges, the door blasting open in a shower of sparks and debris. Khalid and her team stormed the command center, their weapons blazing as they engaged the alien technicians and security personnel. The room was a chaotic whirlwind of activity, the aliens desperately trying to regain control of their communication network. Specialist Nguyen, get to the main console and initiate the cyber attack. Khalid shouted, her weapon barking as she covered her team's advance. Nguyen sprinted towards the central console, his fingers flying across the alien interface. I'm in, ma'am. But their firewalls are tough. I need more time. Khalid gritted her teeth, her eyes scanning the room for any sign of reinforcements. You've got it, Nguyen. Hold them off as long as you can. As the rest of the team fought to keep the alien forces at bay, Nguyen continued his relentless assault on the aliens' communication network. Sweat beaded on his brow, his concentration unwavering as he fought to breach the aliens' defenses. Suddenly, the entire room shuddered, and Khalid felt a chill run down her spine. What the hell was that? She demanded, her weapon raised and ready. They're attempting to initiate some kind of lockdown protocol. Nguyen shouted, his fingers flying across the console. I'm almost through, but we're running out of time. Khalid glanced around the room, her mind racing. They were running out of options, and the alien reinforcements were sure to arrive any moment. She knew they had to act fast, or risk being trapped and overwhelmed. Nguyen, get ready to pull the plug, she said, her voice low and resolute. We're getting out of here now. As the shockwave from the alien mothership's devastating attack rippled through the human outpost, General Cortez fought to regain her footing, her mind racing. She knew that the fate of the entire colony now rested on the success of Aisha Khalid's infiltration mission. Status report. She barked, her voice tense as she surveyed the damage. Smoke and debris filled the air, and the sounds of distant explosions echoed across the battered landscape. The alien forces are surging forward, ma'am, one of her officers reported, his face pale. Our defensive lines are buckling under the onslaught. We won't be able to hold them off much longer. Cortez gritted her teeth, her eyes narrowing. Where's Colonel Yamato? I need him to coordinate the evacuation efforts. I'm afraid the colonel didn't make it, General, the officer replied, his voice tinged with regret. His unit was wiped out by the aliens' bombardment. Cortez felt a pang of sorrow, but she pushed it aside, her focus unwavering. All right then. I want all available units to fall back to the secondary defensive line. Divert every resource we have to the civilian shelters. We need to buy Khalid's team as much time as possible. As her orders were relayed, Cortez turned her attention to the tactical displays, her mind racing. The alien forces were relentless, their sheer firepower and coordination overwhelming the human defenders. She knew that without a decisive intervention, the colony would be lost. Come on, Aisha, she muttered under her breath, her fingers clenched around the edge of the console. We're counting on you. Back on the alien mothership, Aisha Khalid and her team were in a desperate race against time. Nguyen had managed to breach the aliens' communication network, but the countdown to the lockdown protocol was ticking down, and the reinforcements were closing in. Nguyen, how much longer? Khalid shouted, her weapon barking as she and the others fought to hold off the alien guards. I'm almost there, Mom, Nguyen replied, his fingers flying across the alien interface. Just a few more seconds. Suddenly, the room was plunged into darkness, the alien consoles flickering and going dark. Khalid felt a surge of triumph, but it was quickly tempered by the ominous rumbling that echoed through the corridors. Everyone, move, move, she yelled, her squad breaking into a sprint as the alien mothership began to shudder and tremble around them. They raced through the labyrinthine corridors, the sound of their boots pounding against the metal floors, the only thing that broke the eerie silence. Khalid could feel her heart pounding in her chest, her breath coming in ragged gasps as they pushed themselves to the limit. Nguyen, "What the hell is happening?" she demanded, her voice tinged with panic. "I've managed to disrupt their communication network, but it's triggered some kind of emergency failsafe," Nguyen replied, his voice tense. "The whole ship is going into lockdown. We need to get out of here now." Khalid gritted her teeth, her mind racing. They were deep inside the alien vessel, and the only way out was through a maze of heavily guarded corridors. She knew their chances of making it back to the extraction point were slim, but they had no choice. "All right, listen up," she said, her voice steady despite the fear that gnawed at her. "We're going to have to fight our way through. Stay close and watch each other's backs. We're not leaving anyone behind." Her squad nodded, their expressions grim but determined. They knew the risks, but they also knew that the fate of the colony rested on their shoulders. As they pressed forward, they encountered increasingly fierce resistance from the alien guards, their advanced weaponry and reflexes making them a formidable foe. Khalid and her team fought with everything they had, their weapons blazing as they carved a path through the chaos. Finally, they reached the hangar bay, a massive open space filled with alien ships and the buzzing of activity. Khalid scanned the area, her eyes narrowing as she spotted their extraction point. A human-piloted dropship hovering near the far wall. "There's our ride," she shouted, her squad surging forward. "Everyone, move, move." But as they drew closer, Khalid's heart sank. The dropship was already under attack, its shields flickering as the alien forces converged on it. "Colonel Yamato, come in," she yelled into her comm, desperation edging into her voice. "We need extraction now." Static crackled in her earpiece, and Khalid felt a chill run down her spine. "Damn it," she muttered, her grip tightening on her weapon. "We're on our own." Back at the human outpost, General Cortez watched in horror as the situation deteriorated. The alien forces had breached the secondary defensive line, their relentless onslaught pushing the human troops to the brink of collapse. "All units, fall back to the final line of defense," she ordered, her voice strained. "We need to hold out until Khalid's team can extract." Her officers rushed to carry out her orders, their faces grim. Cortez knew that the odds were stacked against them, but she refused to give up hope. If Khalid and her team could disrupt the aliens' communication network, it might just give them the opening they needed to turn the tide of the battle. As the human troops dug in at the final defensive position, Cortez turned her attention to the skies, her eyes searching for any sign of the dropship. She knew that Khalid and her team were in a desperate race against time, and she prayed that they would make it back alive. Suddenly, a flash of light in the distance caught her eye, and Cortez felt a surge of hope. "There," she cried, pointing towards the horizon. "It's the dropship, and they're under attack." Her officers followed her gaze, their weapons at the ready as the battered dropship emerged from the chaos, its engines straining as it fought to reach the outpost. But the alien forces were relentless, their ships closing in like a pack of hungry predators. Cortez gritted her teeth, her hands clenching into fists. "All units, open fire. Provide cover for that dropship." The human troops unleashed a withering barrage of plasma bolts and missile fire, their weapons blasting away at the alien ships as they closed in on the dropship. Cortez watched, her heart pounding, as the battle unfolded before her eyes. The dropship's shields were faltering, and Cortez knew that they were running out of time. "Come on, Aisha," she muttered, her eyes fixed on the flickering display. "Just a little further." Suddenly, the dropship lurched forward, its engines roaring as it broke free from the alien pursuit. Cortez let out a triumphant shout, her fist pumping in the air. "They made it," she cried, her officers cheering alongside her. "Now, let's finish this." As the dropship touched down, Khalid and her team spilled out, their weapons blazing as they joined the human forces in the final push. Cortez felt a surge of pride and relief, her gaze fixed on the alien mothership as it loomed above them. "All units, target the alien vessel's main reactor," she ordered, her voice ringing with authority. "We're going to show these invaders that they've picked a fight with the wrong species." The human forces unleashed a devastating barrage of fire, their weapons pounding away at the alien mothership's defenses. Cortez watched, her heart pounding, as the massive vessel began to tremble and shake, its systems failing under the relentless assault. Finally, with a thunderous explosion, the alien mothership broke apart, its shattered remains tumbling from the sky. Cortez let out a triumphant roar, her troops cheering and celebrating as the alien forces, now bereft of their central command, began to falter and retreat. The battle was far from over, but Cortez knew that they had turned a critical corner. With the aliens' communication network disrupted and their mothership destroyed, the human forces had a fighting chance of pushing back the invasion and reclaiming their home. As the dust settled and the wounded were tended to, Cortez approached Khalid, her eyes filled with gratitude and respect. "Well done, Lieutenant Commander," she said, her voice filled with pride. "You and your team have saved Senderi. We couldn't have done it without you." Khalid offered a weary smile, her expression etched with the toll of the battle. "We were just doing our job, General, but I'm glad we were able to turn the tide. Now let's finish this fight and send these aliens packing." Cortez nodded, her gaze turning towards the horizon, where the remnants of the alien forces were retreating. "You've got that right, Aisha. This is our home, and we're not going to give it up without a fight." With renewed determination, Cortez rallied her troops, her voice ringing out across the battlefield. "For Senderi, for humanity, let's show these aliens what we're made of." The human forces surged forward, their weapons blazing as they pursued the retreating alien forces. Cortez knew that the battle was far from over, but with the momentum on their side, she was confident that they would emerge victorious. Static crackled in her earpiece, and Khalid felt a chill run down her spine. "Damn it," she muttered, her grip tightening on her weapon. "We're on our own." Back at the human outpost, General Cortez watched in horror as the situation deteriorated. The alien forces had breached the secondary defensive line, their relentless onslaught pushing the human troops to the brink of collapse. "All units, fall back to the final line of defense," she ordered, her voice strained. "We need to hold out until Khalid's team can extract." Her officers rushed to carry out her orders, their faces grim. Cortez knew that the odds were stacked against them, but she refused to give up hope. If Khalid and her team could disrupt the aliens' communication network, it might just give them the opening they needed to turn the tide of the battle. As the human troops dug in at the final defensive position, Cortez turned her attention to the skies, her eyes searching for any sign of the dropship. She knew that Khalid and her team were in a desperate race against time, and she prayed that they would make it back alive. Suddenly, a flash of light in the distance caught her eye, and Cortez felt a surge of hope. "There," she cried, pointing towards the horizon. "It's the dropship, and they're under attack." Her officers followed her gaze, their weapons at the ready as the battered dropship emerged from the chaos, its engines straining as it fought to reach the outpost. But the alien forces were relentless, their ships closing in like a pack of hungry predators. Cortez gritted her teeth, her hands clenching into fists. "All units, open fire. Provide cover for that dropship." The human troops unleashed a withering barrage of plasma bolts and missile fire, their weapons blasting away at the alien ships as they closed in on the dropship. Cortez watched, her heart pounding, as the battle unfolded before her eyes. The dropship's shields were faltering, and Cortez knew that they were running out of time. "Come on, Aisha," she muttered, her eyes fixed on the flickering display. "Just a little further." Suddenly, the dropship lurched forward, its engines roaring as it broke free from the alien pursuit. Cortez let out a triumphant shout, her fist pumping in the air. "They made it," she cried, her officers cheering alongside her. "Now let's finish this." As the dropship touched down, Khalid and her team spilled out, their weapons blazing as they joined the human forces in the final push. Cortez felt a surge of pride and relief, her gaze fixed on the alien mothership as it loomed above them. "All units, target the alien vessel's main reactor," she ordered, her voice ringing with authority. "We're going to show these invaders that they've picked a fight with the wrong species." The human forces unleashed a devastating barrage of fire, their weapons pounding away at the alien mothership's defenses. Cortez watched, her heart pounding, as the massive vessel began to tremble and shake, its systems failing under the relentless assault. Finally, with a thunderous explosion, the alien mothership broke apart, its shattered remains tumbling from the sky. Cortez let out a triumphant roar, her troops cheering and celebrating as the alien forces, now bereft of their central command, began to falter and retreat. The battle was far from over, but Cortez knew that they had turned a critical corner. With the aliens' communication network disrupted and their mothership destroyed, the human forces had a fighting chance of pushing back the invasion and reclaiming their home. As the dust settled and the wounded were tended to, Cortez approached Khalid, her eyes filled with gratitude and respect. "Well done, Lieutenant Commander," she said, her voice filled with pride. "You and your team have saved Xandari. We couldn't have done it without you." Khalid offered a weary smile, her expression etched with the toll of the battle. "We were just doing our job, General. But I'm glad we were able to turn the tide. Now let's finish this fight and send these aliens packing." Cortez nodded, her gaze turning towards the horizon, where the remnants of the alien forces were retreating. "You've got that right, Aisha. This is our home, and we're not going to give it up without a fight." With renewed determination, Cortez rallied her troops, her voice ringing out across the battlefield. "For Xandari, for humanity, let's show these aliens what we're made of." The human forces surged forward, their weapons blazing as they pursued the retreating alien forces. Cortez knew that the battle was far from over, but with the momentum on their side, she was confident that they would emerge victorious.